Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff, Tam McManus, and I'm delighted to say Brian Rice is with us, the Livingston coach, and of course, basically someone that you always can count on. When you see that comfort zone, Ruffy, of someone that you can count on that's going to be at a match, I just look over and I think everything's all right. Chipper's in the stand, we're okay.
Yeah, you're right. And first thing you said on the park, as soon as he lifted his head up, you would go, okay, here's another 40-yarder coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So over and above that, we've got lots to talk about with Brian in the studio. But of course, the overriding thought process at the moment is yet another dismal night in Europe for Scottish clubs. Not so much for Aberdeen. I think we've got to give them credit for a good away point. But for Celtic and Rangers, dismal.
Yeah, I think in terms of Celtic, first half performance was really poor defensively. I think they get picked apart. I think Midtjylland kind of took it easy on them second half. I think they took two or the three best players off after an hour. The game was done. Celtic got the goal towards the end and made it a little bit more respectable. But in terms of Celtic, really poor performance. Rangers, I think nobody expected them to beat Roma. I thought Rangers were okay last night. I thought they battled away. Roma were a different class from them. But yeah, it's not been a great couple of weeks for Scottish clubs in Europe.
Yeah, let's start with Michelin, because quite simply, Ruffy, I don't think anybody, is it fair to say nobody really expected Celtic to beat them, because they are on a good run in European football?
Yeah, they're not a big name in European football, but they're certainly sitting top of that group, which says something with the results that they've had. And then I was listening to the commentator going through their team, where their players were from, a couple from Brazil, a couple from Colombia. So they've really tapped into a market that's doing particularly well for them. I just think we've spoken about it on numerous occasions. Celtic have just went backwards in Europe. The players they've brought in just aren't at the quality that they used to have in Europe. And you can see that last night defensively. Not a lot of experience there, and they just struggled all night.
Yeah, Brian, Martin O'Neill got that kick out of the players that he was looking for a couple of games. Obviously, football, the nature of it, 2 wins and everybody's clamouring for you to get a job. He was far more realistic, especially in today's press conference at Celtic, where basically he was well aware that there's a difference between what they're doing domestically and what you need to do in Europe.
Definitely. I think new manager coming in, bounce, Falkirk at home, Rangers in the semi-final, big games for him, real big games, and got the fans on side, got a couple of good victories, and everybody's bouncing again a little bit. But last night was back to reality. I think Ruffy spoke about it there. When you play in Europe, you've got to defend properly away from home. And a lot of inexperience last night, I thought Celtic showed. Michelin, they're a good team. I saw them against Hibs. I was at the game at Easter Road when they played here early in the season. And they were a good team. And I think last night, like Tam alluded to, first half especially, they went for the jugular to try to get the game won. And they could have scored more. And second half, the game tapered out a little bit. But Martin's been in the game long enough. He's been around the block a lot of times. And he knows it isn't a quick fix. It's not going to be a quick fix at Celtic. And it'll just be a matter of time now before I think they appoint someone.
Yeah, and over and above that, Tam, as Brian mentioned there, when you're talking about the problems that both Celtic and Rangers have faced this season, in the back line, the first 2 goals all came from Celtic's right flank. And it came from, Martin O'Neill's side. When you look back over the 20 years ago, it was all about stop the cross. My God, they were able to nip in between Ralston and Arne Engels for the second goal. And it was similar in the first goal, down that right-hand side. And the challenge wasn't there. The cross was in easy enough for the floated ball to the back for the header.
Yeah, it was. And Martin O'Neill's probably looking at that squad and thinking, if this was my team, they'd be all over 6 feet. I mean, we all know Martin O'Neill's team in the early 2000s. I was fortunate to play against them. They were the biggest team I've ever played against. They were massive. They played 3-5-2, 3 big massive centre-halves. And you're right, they defended it. It was hard to get crossing against Celtic, never mind getting a goal against them. The 2 wing-backs really stopped the crosses coming in at source. And yeah, I think in terms of Celtic, I think the drop-off from Celtic, I mean, February this year, they're a minute away from beating Bayern Munich, in the Allianz Arena and getting to the next stage of the Champions League. And the drop-off from that to this season, is incredible. You wouldn't think it was the same club, Peter, and I think defensively they've been poor, but I think the forward areas, I mean, you look at the players that Celtic have lost, I just don't think they've replaced them with the same quality, and that's why they're struggling this season as well.
Yeah, and as ever, as you mentioned there, sometimes the difference when you're playing, no disrespect to the likes of Falkirk, and even, at times, you could tell in the Rangers game that I knew Celtic were up for it because they were pressing, they were first to it, they just had that little bit that you thought Martin's got into a few people's heads and filled them with confidence. But when you've got a Michelin side that are technically good and have been together, and have got some really good results and good scalps along the way, and they've got a good pedigree in Europe, then suddenly they're up against it. And Celtic's problems, as well as the defence, up front, they've suffered the loss of Osmond. He got a penalty, but then he's picked up an injury. Iheanacho is a few weeks away from even seeing the first team domestically.
Yeah, it's very difficult when you've not got strikers. I remember somebody, I can't remember who it was, says, you're only as good as your strikers. You know in Tam's case, right enough.
I think that was Tony Mowbray said that to me before.
You're only as good as your strikers, Peter. And Celtic are struggling in that department at the minute.
Yeah.
And for me, defending starts at the front. When you'd Russian Dalglish at Liverpool many years ago, people say, who's your best defenders? Russian Dalglish.
Yeah.
They started the press, and everybody else could move with that. Celtic aren't at that level now, right now, and defensively look really naive. I see it all the time now. Fullbacks get out to wingers and think they've done their job. Their job's to stop the cross, to put a tackle in. They think getting out there and showing them down the line is enough. And when the ball comes in the box, your centre-halves have got to go and head that ball.
Yeah.
They've got to put their body on the line, they've got to be big, they've got to be strong. And the goals were far too easy last night. And all the players will be disappointed with that. I think Engels for the second goal was really poor. Ralston needed a hand and he's let him come inside and he's let him go through the two of them. I think Engels' position, he's a good player. He's a good offensive player, but I think just defensively last night, Celtic were really, really struggling.
Yeah, and with that in mind, and I don't want to harp back because so many fans will be thinking, oh yeah, talking about an older generation. When Martin was at his peak, he had, effectively Thompson was a midfielder, but he played that left side in a 3-5-2. But his role, like Agat on the other side, was quite simply, if you allow that cross to come in, then it's Valharan, it's Mayalbi, it's Bobo Baldi. It's a powerhouse who's got a chance to clear the danger. That's not the case. I mean, the third goal was embarrassing.
Yeah, listen, I just think Celtic were really, really poor defensively, Peter. And no matter how good you are, and Martin Neil spoke about it after the game, you lose the first goal, you dig in, you don't lose the second goal. You dig in away from home, you keep it 1-0 at half time, you regroup. As soon as Celtic lost the second goal, you're thinking they're up against it. Then the third goal came quickly, game over. So I think Celtic never stayed in the game long enough to try and get into half time to regroup, maybe change the system, change the personnel. But yeah, I think all three goals are avoidable in terms of Celtic. And the one that he cuts inside was similar to the one against Hearts. I don't know, was it boy Kazarida's cut inside and they showed him into his stronger foot. Ralston, you're talking about, he's got to show him, if he shows him inside, he's got to show him into bodies, and that's what Chip was talking about. Engels has got to do better. But if he's right sided, you're playing against a left-sided player and he's right sided, you've tried to show him the line. You don't want in that area, you don't want him cutting in 20 yards for a goal and he can bend in the top corner. So yeah, I thought it was naive from an experienced player, Ralston, but yeah, I just think Martin O'Neill will know that there's a lot of work to be done at Celtic.
Yeah, and of course they'll obviously be looking for a manager, whether that manager's in place when suddenly the international break comes about, and then they've got to try and engineer a manager that can get the best out of the squad, maybe change the way they're playing, who knows, maybe in the January transfer window give them a budget to change a couple of players here and there. In that group, it's quite disappointing when you look at Celtic and Rangers because roughly they're now 27th in the league table, Celtic, but they've got Feyenoord, Roma, Bologna and Utrecht coming up in that group.
Got to win 3 of them.
Well, not only that, but got to win 3 of them. And when you consider that the coefficient, I was looking at the coefficient overall for us, and we've dropped down to 18th. Now we're going to be playing Scottish clubs. I'm talking about all the Scottish clubs. We are going to be playing quite a number of qualifiers even to get to group stages.
Yeah, I think everybody knows how important that coefficient is. That you don't want to be playing all the games. That's a starter. But from another view as well, when they're not doing particularly well, the rest of Scottish football aren't doing well because they're not getting that big UEFA handout. It's amazing how many Scottish clubs rely on the big two to do very well and get the coefficient, because when that UEFA handout comes in, you could be talking about 100 grand. to smaller clubs.
Yeah.
They get the bonus of that, so it affects them as well, not only as well as the coefficient. So we've got to get them winning games.
Yeah, and when you were playing at your peak, Brian, you would. I mean, we were joking about the fact, and Ruffy's mentioning you were prone to a 40-yard diagonal, but nevertheless, any midfielder worth his salt, when he lifts his head, he needs a willing player who's going to show for you, or a willing player who's going to run in behind. Who did you play with up front that you enjoyed the most, by the way?
Gary Birtles.
Yeah.
Gary Birtles, as soon as you got the ball and you lifted your head, he'd come and show for you, or he'd come and he'd spin in the channel and allowed you to play that ball in there. So you didn't have to be too precise when they're running the channel. But he was fantastic to play with. You could play it into him, he could hold it up all day, bring midfielders into the game. That gets them closer to the attackers, which pushes the defenders back. And it's quite simple, it's just up, back and through.
Yeah.
It's a thing we don't really say that much now, Ruffy. We were all taught that as kids. Get it here, get it into the striker, lay it back, next one through for runners. And once the forwards are running, everybody else is running.
Yeah.
If they're not running forward, me as a midfield player can't run forward. So it's very important that you've got a mixture. That's why I like two strikers. One coming short, one going long. So if it is up and back, the next one's through for the next striker.
Yeah.
Or the wide player coming inside, making the runs.
Now, I was joking the fact that we would go to games and Tam will go and Ruffy and we'll see you there because you're obviously looking ahead if Livingston are playing a potential club, or you're getting an insight into a manager, the way he sets his side up. Have you seen a drastic change, and have you seen that change that you wonder why? The game is simple, sometimes complicated by players, as many a manager would tell you, but have you seen changes that you think, I don't know why they're doing that, I don't know why they're embracing that? I mean, the one that is our bugbear at times is, teams that decide that they want to play out from the back and then allow the opposition to press right up in them, and you get goals. I mean, you'll have to look at what I think the biggest one was Ange Postecoglou, and now Motherwell.
Yeah.
Motherwell do it, and they're a joy to watch if they can get out, but not when they don't.
Yeah, no, I have seen a change. I can understand why they try to do it to entice the opposition on, but I just think when you do entice them on, then the next ball's got to miss them out, and play long up to the striker and then get support for there. It's very difficult. If you do it and you're winning, it's correct. If you do it and you lose goals like Motherwell did at Celtic Park, then what are you doing if you not learned your lessons?
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me is that, for me, football is about scoring more than the opposition.
Yeah.
And any team that I've managed or had a say over a team selection, I've always tried to go with two strikers. I've always tried to think, well, put the ball in there, get the ball in the opposition's half, get crosses in, get link-up play with two strikers. I think it's easier to score with two strikers than it is with one.
Yeah.
And it's just my thoughts. But
why do you think there's been that change away from that? Is it because
television? I think television's to blame for loads of tactical stuff now. We see all this European stuff. You can turn on your telly 24 hours a day and watch games from any place in the world, and it's all.
You've been up at Tam's house?
Ruffy's on the basis that you can see any game anywhere in the world. He's got this fantastic satellite dish that moves to see any
I
game.
think it was a Pep Guardiola a wee bit as well with the 4-3-3 and Barcelona and
keeping
the false nines and all that stuff.
That's great if you've got the players that can do that, Tam. They're doing it with the best players in the world. I'm seeing teams try to do it with people that aren't comfortable. I heard Dean Saunders a great bit on the radio 6 weeks ago, and we're talking about playing out for the back pair, and they're saying, why is a goalkeeper a goalkeeper? Because he was the worst player. Who's the next two worst players normally on the ball? Your two centre-halves.
Yeah.
Then who? Probably your two full-backs. So all of a sudden now we put the 5 players into your own penalty box and say, right, go and try and beat the opposition.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous unless you've got the best players. Mm-hmm. And if you've got the best players, you can play whatever way you want.
Yeah.
Because they'll decide what's going the right decisions. Too often I see teams are coached and it's, I need to do this and I need to do that. Whereas for me, when you're on the pitch, you're the decision maker. Can I play it back to the goalkeeper? Can I play it to the centre-half? Do I need to miss them out?
Yeah.
Do I need to go on? It's about decision making.
It's funny you saying that because that was obviously from, Martin Neal that we're talking about there. We're about to go into Rangers, and again, centre-halves and pro-backs are a real problem there, is the fact that Brian Clough would say, listen, you two, I didn't sign you to play football. And Martin O'Neill used to say to the 3 centre-halves, listen, you head the ball away from the danger area. And And again, by the way, the reason why we brought Chipper on is because he just leathered you. The worst player is the goalie.
I can't argue with that. I can't even argue that. I mean,
Front training.
yeah, I know.
Oh, he did, Peter.
No, you're right. No, at school, you know, the teams get picked and the wee fat guy or the hopeless player get through 9 goals.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
The way it was.
Thank God I was thin when I was younger. But nevertheless, Rangers have a problem. Lost 2-0. They're bottom of the whole Europa League table, 36th. I don't think anybody in their right mind, Ruffy, thought Rangers are going to put up a performance against Roma, regardless of the positives that, you know, you look at the game against Celtic, there were some positives out of it. They still lost the game, that's the ultimate. But this guy, Danny Roll, has said, I'm well aware, I knew exactly what the problems were. So it wasn't a case of coming into a job and it's surprised me. So nobody expected him to take anything off Roma.
But he's got to get the supporters to buy into that as well. They weren't buying into it with the previous manager. They're listening to this guy now. He's getting into the crowd. He's, you know, getting them on board. You know, and I think Rangers are just at a moment in time where they're looking for a spark. And you go into the games, they need to score first. They need to score first to get the whole crowd behind them, and that didn't happen. They had a couple of chances last night for it to happen, but for me, they're just sort of a motoring on, and they're looking for somebody to dig them out a hole and lift them, and it just never happened last night.
Yeah, Soli and Pellegrini got the goals. The second one, it was a beautiful side foot, but the first one again highlights exactly what the problems have been for Rangers.
Yeah, I think that defensively, Peter, Rangers have not been good enough all season. I think they're going to have to get into the transfer market in January and buy 2, possibly 3 centre-halves. I think that's a real weakness for Rangers for me. He's went with 3 at the back. He's changed it. Russell Martin, you know, favoured a 4 at the back. But down the sides, I think you can get at Rangers. I think, you know, Chipler's obviously involved at Livingston. I think if you look at that Rangers team, whether it's Tavernier or Magoma or Max Aarons, you think you can get down the side of Rangers, and I think that's what Roma done last night as well. I don't think it was a bad Rangers performance. I didn't expect Rangers to get anything out of the game. Roma are a top team. You've seen some of the players coming off the bench, you know, 25, 30 million pound players. You know, they're a class above Rangers, but I think Danny Rowe's just desperately trying to get to January. I think he's left a great hand at Rangers in terms of the players that they've signed and they're lacking in confidence. So I think he's just got to get to try and put some sort of run together domestically, try and keep the Rangers fans engaged, keep them on side, get to January, strengthen the team. I'm sure there'll be more money available, but I think Rangers and Celtic will just write off the Europa League now. I think that more importantly is doing well domestically and trying to catch Hearts.
Yeah, and the other aspect of it that I think you look at how far, and I think they mentioned it last night, 2 elements of it that Ali McCoy's mentioned. One of them was that they looked as if they were tiny against physically taller, better specimens, technically better than them as well. But over and above that, it's 7 defeats in a row, and they've got to be the only team that's been in a European final, and most of the signings since then have made them worse.
Yeah, you know, I've heard a lot of Rangers fans say that we've spent £20 million and we're worse now. You know, and it's going to take time. I thought last night there was signs. You know, I thought last night they played forward a lot more than they have done under Russell Martin. And I'm not decrying Russell Martin by any means. Everybody's got their own style. But I thought they had forward runners last night. Mikey Moore, I thought, when he's stuck on the wing, as he was, Russell Martin, he looked ineffective. But I was at Easter Road last week and he was playing sort of like in the pocket, and last night picking it up and actually getting at players. You know, it was very, very difficult for Rangers last night. Rangers are a team playing with very little confidence at the minute because of the way the results have been this season and whatever else is happening at Ibrox. And they're playing against a fantastic team last night. Disappointing to lose. You're always disappointed to lose, but I think they can walk away last night seeing a little bit of improvement.
Yeah.
You know, and the fans were behind them last night. You know, they were behind them. I think they appreciated the effort the boys were putting in. And the big lad up front, I feel for him. I think he just needs a goal or 2.
He does. I think he's a good attribute, Chipper. I like it.
Good attributes. You know, he got himself into some good areas. And he's wanting to run and take players on.
Yeah, you're talking, of course, about Chermiti.
Yes.
Big chance he had, though.
Yeah, it was a chance. And he's done the right thing. He's come across the goalkeeper and it's went by the far post. But it's how he got in there. His willingness to get in there. His willingness to take people on. You know, he's still young. And I know people say he's £9 million, whatever. You know, but I just think he's playing the team that's not got a lot of confidence at the minute, and 1 or 2 victories, I'm sure Rangers will improve. I can see improvements right now.
Yeah. Do you think Chermiti is suffering from, obviously overall as a team, the confidence is low, they've had poor results. Do you think he's suffering also from the fact that the whole aspect of football now and how people are demanding you hit the ground running right away? You know, nobody's got any time anymore. You either score the goals or you don't. I mean, even at Rangers, it's slightly different because sometimes the expectation outweighs reality. My God, Dessers scored 29 goals and they didn't like him.
I think it's very difficult for a striker, when they get into a club, especially when the club's paid money for them. They're expected to score goals because they've paid money for them, And I don't think it helps them that the director of football or technical director was at the club he was at before and the fans have fell out with him. I don't think that's helping the boy either. He's getting sort of paired alongside him, which I think is very unfair. But when you go into a club as a striker, you want that first goal as quick as possible, then you want your second goal. And like I say, I've seen little signs there that, if once he gets 2 or 3 goals, I would expect him to go on a wee run. And again, I'll go back to it. I think he'd be better with somebody right up close to him. Last night, Rangers had good possession of the ball at times. They've got it in the left back area, right back area, and they've only got one man to hit. And it's easy for me to sit here and say go 2 up top. That means you need to lose a player elsewhere. And against good teams, they can overpower you, overrun you. But no, I think they're better to come for the big man.
I think the problem is, Peter, with Rangers at the minute is none of the strikers are scoring. So I always think if you watch a team and they're not scoring goals, but none of the strikers are scoring, then for me that's a service problem. I don't think that they're creating a lot of chances, Rangers, at the minute. Miovski, I think, is a fantastic striker. He's hardly scored a goal. Danilo scored against Hibs, but not scored a lot of goals. Chermiti's struggling to score goals. So I think it's a service. I think that the setup at Rangers at the minute, as Chipper alludes to there, maybe go another guy up front, and go a wee bit more direct, put crosses in the box for these guys. But I don't think the one up front works. I don't think Chermiti can play in a one. I'm not sure Miovski can play in a one either. And also, it's amazing when a team's struggling and a team's really, really struggling for form, how bad a player you can look. Because the whole team's struggling.
The thing about it is the 2 strikers that you've just mentioned there came to Rangers, they weren't scoring goals. They weren't prolific, they weren't, he's hit 20 here and he's hit 20. They've brought in 2 guys who haven't been...
But if they were hitting 20 goals,
they wouldn't get them.
Couldn't afford them.
It's a very good point. It's a double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged sword, Peter. It's difficult to find somebody to come to your club that's doing really well at a big club, to come for what you can pay.
Yeah, another aspect of it, which Brian mentioned there as well, is, Ruffy, that the fans are wanting Kevin Thelwell out, and they certainly don't like the fact that his son is in there. It's a little bit of nepotism in their eyes. I cannot comment on the boy's quality and ability to do deals, but the Rangers fans are certainly combing every aspect of his career at the moment to see what type of player he's managed to recruit and what CV justifies his dad bringing him over to there. It's difficult when you're not winning because then fans tend to, Ruffy, look for every problem that they can within a club.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I have to improve on, and not only they two, but it puts a wee bit added pressure on the manager because he's got to win games, and if he starts winning games, he'll forget about they two, the father and son, and concentrate on the team. When they meet up, my team's playing well, he's playing well. They don't want to be talking about what's happening behind the scenes, and that's the case with every club. If you're winning on the park, nobody gives a hoot about what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, okay. And with that in mind, not good for Rangers. 7 European defeats in a row. It's not a great record to brag about. And suddenly I'm thinking to myself, Aberdeen, it could be a totally miserable night. But it wasn't, Ruffy, because, okay, they're from Cyprus, not exactly the hotbed of
beat Palace,
European
side.
Yeah, but that's what you're thinking yourself, not exactly the hotbed of European football. But from their point of view, they were on a good run as well as coming up against Aberdeen. Okay, the main chances fell to them. He missed a sitter right at the end too, one of the Cypriot players. But 0-0's a good result for Jimmy Tilling.
No, I think it is, in the light of what's happened, the 6-0 in the last game, I think the fans were a wee bit perturbed about that. So he had to go there and put in a performance. It was a backs to the wall. I only saw the highlights, but they were under pressure. And then the boy gets the chance at the end, which nobody would be talking about the backs of the wall if he sticks that in. But I think the separate teams, I think it was Neil Lennon that said that these separate teams are now backed financially. You know, it used to be just separate sort of owned, but now there's a Russian content in there owning all these clubs and they're piling money into Cyprus football. So you can see the better players that they've got.
Milanovic. Now, you'll have worked with, you mentioned Gary Birtles, strikers who are worth their salt in the middle of the penalty box. I always used to think that Oni Coyle's heart rate dropped to the point where he was so calm that he just stroked the ball into the net. Milanovic, you just got to stroke that in and it's a goal and you win the game for Aberdeen.
Yeah, especially at the time of the match. You know, your back's against the wall. You've hung in there, especially after, as I've said, getting beat 6-0 the last time we flew home in Athens. You know, I think Aberdeen would have took the point at Sunday, and I think a clean sheet away from home is fantastic. But you're talking about Oni Coyle there. You're talking about a boy that would walk off the training pitch and scored 15 goals that day and tell you 4 with my right, 7 with my left, and 4 headers. You know, and you just fantastic finisher.
Yeah,
him and Peter Davenport. A boy who played with for us as well. Went to Manchester United. Fantastic finish. Never lashed it into the net when they could place it in. Peter Davenport used to always say to me, I just try and hit the post, I aim for the post. He says, if I'm close to it, it's either just past or it's just in. Fantastic finisher.
great way to look at it. And for anybody of a generation that wants to look at the really great strikers, you know, at times they will look for it. I mean, the great Jimmy Greaves used to pass the ball into the net. Ruffy, you'll have known exactly what he was like as a footballer. He was scored on his debut for every club he signed for.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I think the downside of his career was he never got picked for England, didn't he, for one of the World Cups?
The World Cup final. You picked all the way in.
All the way in, and he missed it. So, no, he was up there with all the top strikers. And another one to throw in, obviously we've been talking about the Kenny Dalglish film that's out just now. I watched it before we came in. Ian Rush did exactly what you are talking about. He just hit it into the ball, no pace, nothing, just placed it into the corner, inside the post. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fixtures to look forward to over the weekend. We're going to talk about the SPFL and the Scottish Premiership. But just as a footnote to all this, Tam, next up for Celtic, Feyenoord, Roma, Bologna, Utrecht. Next up for Rangers, Braga, Ludogorets, Ferencvaros and Porto. And then next up for Aberdeen, Noah, Strasbourg and Sparta Prague. Noah's not one boy, by the way, it's a team, just in case you thought they were playing for a draw.
No, I think, as Chipper said there, I think it was Aberdeen have had back-to-back clean sheets now. I think they were doing one at Kilmarnock, 1-0, and I watched them against Hibs just after the Athens game, and they could have conceded another 5 or 6. You know, Hibs had real opportunities. He's definitely tightened up. He had to. I think he was coming under a bit of pressure. I think he's really tightened up. They've got 2 clean sheets. They've got a good point away from home, and they'll be looking to continue that in the league. But I don't see Celtic and Rangers get many points out of their fixtures the way they're both playing at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about them in the Scottish Premiership. The fixtures: Falkirk against Livingston, St Mirren, Hibs, Aberdeen, Motherwell, Dundee, Rangers, Hearts, Dundee United and Celtic against Kilmarnock. And as we look to the domestic front on this and looking at what's happening, you've got to say congratulations to Derek McInnes. He's the manager of the month for the 3rd consecutive time. And boy, everything looks rosy in that garden at Tynecastle, doesn't it, Chipper?
It's looking fantastic at the minute. Undefeated, scoring goals, no conceding. We're talking about a team playing with confidence, a team that's going onto the pitch right now expecting to win. Even when they go behind, they were 3 behind against Motherwell at home, got a 3-3. I've been at a lot of their games, you know, and you can feel the excitement for the stand. You know, it's even in the warm-up, the place is buzzing. And they expect goals, and they've got players, they've got game changers.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's really spoke about it, you know, about the way he's playing. It's like an old-fashioned 4-4-2. You know,
is that why he's getting it right? Is there something significant? I mean, you watch games, you study them. You've worked under some fantastic managers. So when you're sitting in the stand, and I see you there, and you're watching the game, and you're obviously going to give David Martindale as much of an insight as you can for your team. But when you're sitting in the stand, you obviously, as a footballer before, what has he got that you see that they're reaping the rewards? What's he doing?
I think he's made a significant change. Moving Harry Milne from left back to wide right, you know, and he's different on the other side with Kazaridis. They get the ball to Milne quite a lot, and he comes inside, and he can hit a quick switchy play with that left foot of his. 40, 50, 60 yards, right to Casaridis. Because the ball's travelled so quickly to get to him, he's got 1v1s. And if you watch when Hearts have got the ball down the right side, Casaridis doesn't come in like a normal winger would come in close to the strikers. He holds his position, hoping he can get the ball quickly on a switch to get at you 1v1. And that's one of his strengths. Either taking in the outside or coming inside, as we alluded to earlier, and shooting. You know, he's got a fantastic strike in him. Hearts have just found a way to play just now. You know, and the boy, we were talking about the boy Braga. You know, him and Shankland together, they're fantastic together, the wee combinations.
Shankland just drops into the pockets.
Just drops into the wee pockets. And Braga, he's got great ability holding the ball up, 1v1s. Yeah, everybody's just playing with a confidence. They're playing with a confidence, you know. Losing Penrice I thought would be massive for them because he was fantastic last season. But because they've got Casaridis just staying on the touchline and getting the ball to him as much as possible, you know, they put the ball in the box. That's one thing with Derek's teams. They get there and they put the ball in the box. They don't dress it up. They don't take the extra touch. And see when it goes in the box, they've got bodies going in there. And they've got people that want to score. They'll put their head on things. And they keep things alive. And I just think it's fantastic. It's fantastic to see a team playing with confidence, expecting to win. And like I say, 3 managers, the month awards, fantastic.
Do you think he's changed as a manager from the way he used to set up at Aberdeen? Do you think he's learned, or has he got players that can let him be more expansive?
I think he's got players that can be more expansive. I think he had a fantastic team at Aberdeen. Don't get me wrong. When he had Niall McGinn, Johnny Hayes, Adam Rooney, for example, they got it wide and they got the balls in the box as quick as possible. And set plays have always been massive for Derek. And Hearts has been the same. Look at the amount of late goals they've scored. You know, and a lot of them has been balls into the box.
Yeah.
Free kicks, corners.
Halkett, Hibs.
Yeah. And Dundee United away.
Braga Livy. Was it Braga Livy?
Yeah.
Olivia, yeah.
3-2.
That was offside. No, but I think he's got game changers.
Yeah.
Also on the bench. On the bench. And I think that's the big difference now when I look at Hearts, Celtic and Rangers. Hearts' squad. Somebody comes off, somebody comes on. It doesn't weaken the team.
Yeah, that's a key point here. And with that, Ruffy, and I don't want to get, obviously, Brian into a corner on this, but we've talked about it ad nauseum. The performances in Europe are abysmal for Scottish clubs. Not good enough. The standard of Scottish football, we think, has dropped. Although what we are watching at times is managers trying to play football with what they have at their disposal. And so, there are a clutch of clubs that I can never work out. I wouldn't put a bet on them. Dundee United are one of those clubs because Dundee United, he started well. I watched them and I thought they're playing really well, really good. Then Kilmarnock dismantle them, and then you get a situation where they lose to Motherwell in their last time out. You can't quite. There's 2 or 3 clubs you just can't quite work out. They look as if they're getting momentum and then they don't. And Dundee United are going to Tynecastle trying to put the buffers on this juggernaut at the moment.
Well, it's all about consistency and it's all about getting into games with confidence. And if you're winning a game and then losing a game, winning a game, losing a game, you're going in onto the park. You don't know what's going to happen as a player, and the manager will be the same. So you've got to string, maybe 2 or 3 wins together, but there's none of them doing it. Hearts are the only exception. Now, the rest of them are all just all over the place. So I think if one team can string 3 or 4 wins together, it'd be surprising to see where they end up in the league.
Give us your prediction.
Oh, Hearts are on a run now.
Yeah.
Yep.
No stopping them.
No.
2-0.
2. I'll go 2.
Comfortable to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just agree with everything that Brian said there. I just think Hearts are playing in a crest of wave at the minute, real confidence. Goal scorers, I think they win a comfortable 2-0 as well.
Yeah. I won't ask you for a score prediction, but Hearts to win?
I think Hearts against anyone at Tynecastle at the moment, very difficult for the opponents.
Right, okay. So suddenly we're in a situation where we've looked at the league leaders. By the way, do you think they can win it?
Yes. Yeah, I think Hearts can win the league. I think they're strengthened in January. I really do. I think Tony Bloom will think, I said Hearts can win the league within so many years. I think he'll look at it right now and say, this is going to be our best chance. We've no European football. Celtic and Rangers are struggling a bit at the minute. We're playing the crest of the wave. We're 9 points clear. I think they'll definitely struggle, strengthen in January. And I think they're serious contenders. I've said this now for before 5 years. I've seen enough of them to know they've got something. They've definitely got something. And I look at the other teams and I think they're very inconsistent. really inconsistent, where I think Hearts' consistency. You know, it was a big match at St Mirren Cup last week.
Yeah.
Really big match from coming off the Celtic game, the euphoria of the Celtic game. I think going there and getting a point was a really good result, and I think that shows you where Hearts are at this minute in time.
Right, get the money on, because if Hearts do win the league, Chipper, we have a bet going on in the studio where Tam has agreed to wear the entire the Hearts top, shorts, shinnies, socks, the lot.
Can you talk to me about betting, Peter?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Aye.
No, we're not talking to you about financial. We're talking about stupidity, which is your man here's going to be on a Hearts top.
This was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I'm every week now I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
I think I'm in big trouble, to be honest with you. I agree with Chipper. I think they can win it. I just think I look at Celtic and Rangers, and Chipper's right. There's never been a better opportunity for somebody to upset the top two, the big two.
I think we should make that bet even more now. We should move it on now that we have Maggie's as our charity.
Yeah.
I think he should be outside Tynecastle with that strip and that'd be Maggie's bucket.
I'll get lunch.
I was just about to say, and then on the Monday show we can go, tributes are pouring in for Tam McManus, who was lynched by all the Jambos who were there. Although you would probably make a fortune for Maggie's. Yeah, well mentioned. The Maggie's is our designated charity for the entire season, and you go to www.maggies.org and you can find out all the fabulous work they do and the support they give to family members, friends that you know who are affected by cancer. Just on that point, you know, I know you mentioned there about it. Is it something that you live with every day, that betting thing?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Every day.
Is it a strength that you need to show in your mind, or are there things that are there triggers in your mind that you have to remind yourself?
No, sorry, I'm wrong. When I get up in the morning, just don't bet today. You know, that's all it is. You know, I've got 6 years now. It's just a day-to-day thing. It's just something you live with. You know, it's a terrible thing, whatever the addiction is. You know, so happens that's my addiction, that in football.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I live with it and I deal with it.
Just another little point on that. How important is it the strength of your family? I see your wife with you a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't think she believes me I'm going to all the games.
Well, if she doesn't, you're having an affair with me because I see you in there all the time.
No, listen, you need your family, you need support, but you've got to show them you're making the effort. You've got to show them that, you know, you want to do this more than anything else. And that's where I am with my life.
Is it another thing the clubs should be looking into it more for their players?
We do, they do, the SFA do, and they send people out and we have a chat and all that. And it was funny, they came to Livingston and they were talking, and this ex-player told his story, and they obviously knew I was in the audience. And then we done a podcast about it, and it around all the clubs as well. So there's loads and loads of support there. I keep saying to everybody, look, see when we were in the dressing room at Easter Road, see if you asked for help, you'd have got slaughtered. You would have got slaughtered in the days. It was a weakness to asking for help, but see right now, asking for help's a strength, and whatever it is, mental health, whatever it may be, asking for help's a strength. And that's the message I try to get across. There's people there to help. I'm there all the time. I deal with loads of players with this. You know, unfortunately for football players, they think it's a quick fix, which sadly it isn't. You know, this is ongoing every single day.
And if somebody was watching you right now and what you've just said, if somebody said, I want to approach Chipper but I'm scared, what would you say right now?
Phone me at the club, get in touch. I'm here to help, and if I can't help, I know somebody that will help you. But there's help out there. You know, you're not alone. Yeah. You're not alone.
It's fabulous. I just wish someone maybe had intervened. You always think earlier. I wish somebody had intervened with you earlier, Chipper. And you know, but again, there's a learning curve, and you actually, as many a person with addiction will tell you, you have to get to that place though. Even with the help, you have to get to it yourself. So Hearts Dundee United is one game. Dundee against Rangers. Certainly Stephen Presley says it's going to have to take a perfect performance to take more points off Rangers, as they did back in August. The one thing that he has been positive about in the press conference this week is mentioning that Simon Murray's getting back to greater fitness, better fitness.
Yeah, I think he's a massive player for Dundee. You know, Brian said earlier, the striker starts the press and there's nobody better, I don't think, in the Scottish game than Simon Murray. You know, he's a buzz bomb, he's got tons of energy, he leads from the front, he's a captain, he's a real big important player for them. I just think when teams are playing against Celtic and Rangers now, you're sniffing something. You know, and when I played against Celtic Rangers in the early 2000s, you played Celtic Rangers, you were thinking, right, we get a point here, we're absolutely jumping for joy. But look at the amount of points they've dropped this season, and Dundee have already taken points off of Celtic and Rangers, so they'll get into this game thinking that they can go and do more damage to Rangers. And I think Rangers will need to put in a real performance as well, because I've been impressed with Dundee at times this season. I think that, again, like other clubs, are inconsistent. They started well last week against Hearts, the first 20-25 minutes, then they kind of crumbled. But I think Dundee have got players that can hurt Rangers. And if Rangers don't turn up on the day, I think they'll drop points. But I just think if you're any club now and you're playing against Celtic and Rangers, you're going into it with a wee bit more confidence than you used to do.
Yeah, so with that in mind, Ruffy, Rangers put the result to Roma aside, and again he'll have to tweak it and look at it and see, you know, what he has to do domestically. Away from home needs that like a hole in the head.
Yeah, but he's already been on record to say he's not frightened to rotate, and he is going to rotate. He wants to see all the players that he's got available, because obviously January's coming up, and he's also went in case, look, if I see players that I don't fancy, they're not going to be here. So every player's scrapping for a place in that team. It depends how many he leaves out and who he brings back in, but I think Stephen Presley's right. It's up to them. They need to turn up 11, not just 8 or 9 or 10 of them. The rest, they all need to turn up, no mistakes, and get a wee break of the ball here and there. Because as Tam says, if they go ahead, you can see, you know, they're all wanting it, but when they go behind, it seems to be 2, 3, 4.
Well, they managed to take the scalp of Celtic, obviously 2 points off Rangers, but this one is a big one for them. Just on that point, isn't it amazing that Rangers fans looking at this season, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago they were writing it off, they're only 5 points behind Celtic.
Yeah, but it's no Celtic they need to catch, Peter, at the minute. It's Hearts, you know, and gone to Dundee. The last time Dundee took a 4-0 beating at Aberdeen, and Stephen got on the training pitch for 2 weeks, and they came back and beat Celtic, and I was at the game, you know, and there was a confidence about Dundee that day. And I think what helped them was they got the first goal, you know, because Stephen sets them up really well. They're well organised, defensively they're good, and if they get the first goal, they can be hard to break down. But you know, it's a must-win game for Rangers. It's a must-win game for Dundee as well. You know, I always feel as though, but when a team's played in Europe on the Thursday night,
vulnerable
about rotation, you know, that first goal is so vital in the Premier League.
Dundee Rangers.
Rangers 2-1.
Yep, I think that.
1 each.
I think Rangers will win.
Okay, so Celtic at home against Kilmarnock. Martin O'Neill was asked today about whether there was any update, contact, whatever, discussion about the manager's job. He just said no update on the manager time frame, and he responded to the accusation from Chris Sutton that, well, not so much the accusation, the observation that he shouldn't hang around too much. He doesn't want to tarnish his legacy. And Martin said to say his best line of the day was, "I'm not worried about my legacy. When you're dead, you're dead." And I thought, now, only because I've got an insight into him and I know the way he's thinking. He doesn't think like you, Ruffy. He's thinking 73. How long have I got left? Whereas Ruffy's thinking, I'm going to be here sitting in this chair chipper at 94. You know, as we call it, weekend at Bernie's, when we're just swatting flies off him. But nevertheless, that's Martin's humour, that's Martin's insight into it.
No, I think we've said the window's coming up. I think that'll be the time when we start seeing all the contenders getting thrown in. You know, they'll have a whole week to do discussions and meeting people. We saw all the meetings Rangers had done in London. I think that'll be ongoing. I think Martin's already said, look, I like being here now, but I'm not wanting to be here. He's already expressed, you know, his heart rate's going up and everything. He's 70 odd, so, you know, but he'll enjoy every minute of it, and why not? You know, I think this one at the weekend should be a wee bit easy ride for him. I think Kilmarnock are going through that wee bit of a bad spell. They're now losing bad goals, which they weren't doing at the beginning. But I think Celtic are still on a high just now.
73, do you think he would take it if they offered him it?
I think he should have got it last Sunday. He'll be thinking that himself. Why did I not leave on Sunday after that? But knowing Martin, I've known him through the years, he's a football man, and it's Celtic, you know, and he's been here, he's done it, he's a legend at the club, you know, and he'll be hurting. Don't get me wrong, he'll be hurting today, you know, because he knows what it means to the fans, and he knows the pressure's on.
Yeah,
the pressure's on, but a home game against Kilmarnock, normally you'd be saying, that's the 3 points to Celtic, but you know, I just think in the Premier League right now, there's no guarantees. There's absolutely no guarantees.
Are you surprised by Kilmarnock's free fall?
I'm a little bit. I think he changed the system a little bit as well. One thing, he plays the two men up front. You know, he goes with a big man and a wee man up front, and he gets the ball forward and they get in the box. And the boy Watson is a fantastic player in the middle of the pitch, gets forward, scores goals, and he's got an awful habit of scoring against the Old Firm. You know, so it won't be easy. Kilmarnock will be well set up, but again, I think the first goal here is so important, especially with Celtic's limited strike force. You know, who's going to play up front? Well, it looks like it'll need to be Kenny again, or Maeda maybe go up there. You know, so no, it's a massive game.
Even with the point that Martin's holding the reins, even if he is game by game, as he mentioned, you know, you've still got Kettle, Knutson, 13-8 favourites. Some people are dropping in and out, up and down. Robbie Keane, obviously Craig Bellamy's made his own feelings clear on what he's focusing on at the moment, which is the Wales international side.
Yeah, listen, I think Knutson has been on Celtic's radar for a long time. I think that if you remember Bodo Glimt going to Celtic Park and absolutely dismantling Celtic, 4 or 5 years ago, it's been an upward trajectory for him ever since at Bodo Glimt. He's been linked with a lot of big clubs. They could possibly lose the league this season for the first time in a wee while. In Norway, it's tight at the top. He's got him into the Champions League. I think he would be a universal popular appointment at Celtic. I think the way he sets his teams up, the success he's had, I think that he'd be a really good appointment for Celtic. And the rumour is it's a manager that's going to be available in December, and the Norwegian League obviously runs through the summer, so they'll win their break in December. So I think he ticks a lot of boxes for me, Peter, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was the next Celtic manager.
And strangely enough, that might give Martin the time to walk Celtic out in the League Cup final.
It could all set up perfectly. I think that Martin, I think he's got the buzz back. I think when you're out the game, he's obviously been doing a bit of punditry and stuff. It's not the same as being on that touchline, and coming in at 73, obviously he's got a couple of younger coaches there with him, but that buzz at Hampden beating Rangers, it's something that can't be replicated. So I think if he gets the opportunity to go and lead Celtic out in a cup final against St Mirren and win another trophy as a manager, and then ride off into the sunset, I think it'd be perfect for him and Knudsen coming in. So it might just be that the timing all fits in perfectly for Celtic.
Yeah. Okay. Curious to get your thoughts, Chipper, on the best of the football. We've complimented Hearts. Boy, do I love watching Motherwell. They're good to watch. The triangles, the press, the playing it out sometimes from the back's a bit hear 'em, scare 'em, but nevertheless, when it works, as you said, it looks really impressive. Sometimes you look at managers, and we tend to disregard homebred managers, and in comes a foreign manager, and we think, oh, what's he got to offer? But this boy's had an immediate impact on Motherwell, Jens Bertolaskau.
He's had a massive impact, It's funny, I was at Motherwell's first game of the season against Rangers, and the two teams were playing in the rain box. Honestly, it was like a game for school. It was so good to watch, and I thought, they can't stay doing this, they can't keep doing it, but they're persevering with it. And when it works, it's fantastic. When it doesn't work, they just go again. I just think he's been a breath of fresh air, the way he's got his team played. I watched him against Falkirk 2 weeks ago, and the first half is as good as I've seen a team playing for a long time in Scotland.
Yeah, the boy Aidan Nisbet looked at me at half time as I'm walking down to the press room, and he looked at me and went, we're going to get battered. I mean, he said it was unbelievable. They gave them an absolute doing.
I seen the first half when they played against St Mirren as well at Paisley, and it was the same. They were really, really good because the team sat off them. Second half, Falkirk went and pressed them, and they got the upper hand. St Mirren went and done it for the last 30 minutes as well and got the upper hand. So when I went back and spoke to Davey about what we were going to do against them, we decided, no, let's go and press them. And I think you're seeing a lot now, teams going man for man at the back and taking that chance, especially when they're not going to kick it 40 yards.
Yes.
You can take that chance. But if they beat your press, and they've got game changers up the top. They've got game changers up the top.
But you're a man who's Davy's right hand man, okay? You're a man who's in the stand. You say, right, they're coming to us now. For me, when I look at it at times, this is how I thought Jimmy Tilleen's side last season came a cropper, because guys like you are sitting in the stand. You say, right, I'm watching this. I'm watching the way they play at Aberdeen, the two holders, and then the three, and then eventually people started to really work out what they were all about. Motherwell, Fadinger, Watt, Just, there's your real three in that engine room, and they're the ones that give them the out.
But I'm looking at there as how do they get on the, how do they get on the ball? When I said our back, guess that they're trying to play into Fadinger or what, or when it goes to a fullback, they're trying to play into Fadinger or what to get the next pass forward. So a lot of our stuff was Fadinger and Watt, get high on them, press them. Because I've seen the manager, to be fair to him, when the fullback gets it and plays a ball down the channel, he's out screaming his head off.
Yeah.
That's not how we play. So that gives you a chance then. Because they don't change too much, you know, it gives you a chance to set up against them. You know what they're going to do. The problem is, when they do it really well and do it quickly, which they did in the first half against Falkirk, they're fantastic. The way they got through you, the goal they scored, Marlon Lewis's goal was superb. And they've got the boys in the pockets, like a box in there. The two midfielders and the two wingers are in there. And they're very close together and they can play quick combination passes. And if you're not uptight against them, they will play through you.
Yeah. Aberdeen, Motherwell, Ruffy, how you see it going?
I think for Motherwell, they've got to pick themselves up. Nobody likes to lose a semi-final, you know, and then you need characters in your team to just sort of enjoy the training, get it in the back burner, and they've got another game ahead. So I'll sit on the fence this one. I'm going to go a draw.
Yeah, fancy a draw.
Yeah, I go a draw. I think Motherwell, Aberdeen are due Motherwell one. I think Motherwell beat them a couple of times this season.
I think Motherwell will get a result.
Okay, and with that in mind, we've got to pay tribute to a manager that, just keeps defying logic, because Stephen Robinson and St Mirren, they worked out a way to beat Motherwell. They've been top six finish 3 times in the trot. He just worked wonders, doesn't he? But and by the way, how do you view the criticism that they're this physical side?
They are, but I think that plays into Steve's hands, because they're in other teams' heads. They know, we're going to play St Mirren. They're big, they're strong, they're physical, set pieces, balls forward, chasing lost causes. It's in your head before you go and play them. You know. And I listened to Stephen's interview when they played Motherwell at home in the league, and he says, I got the press wrong first half. Second half he got it right, and he got it right last Saturday. I couldn't call it last Saturday. I had no idea what way I thought of St Mirren.
Good clash of styles, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But it just shows you there's more than one way to win a game.
Yeah.
You know, 4-1 winners, some fantastic goals in the game. But to beat St Mirren at any time, you've got to be ready for the battle first and foremost. You've got to be up for the battle, you've got to win your header. We spoke about it earlier, Celtic no defending their box. If you don't defend your box against St Mirren, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, and with that in mind, they're playing against Hibs. You were able to peg Hibs back right at the death. Does that say more about your determination to not give up, even when you're scrapping for every point?
Well, I think when you play under David Martin, you never give up. You know, it's demanded. It's demanded at every club. But Livingston through the years has always been known as team of battlers, team of grafters, never giving up, underdogs, fighting lost causes, you know, and we showed a bit of that last Saturday, although we played well as well. You know, we actually played a lot.
The least you deserved.
Yeah, we did. I wasn't at the game time, I was down south at another game. But I saw bits of it, and I spoke to the gaffer about it for a long time, and we were delighted the way we played. And a bit of character. No, see when you're bottom of the league. The week before we lost a goal in the 94th minute. Rangers beat us at home in the 96th minute. Hearts beat us at home in the 94th minute. Dundee beat us away in the 97th minute. It takes character to keep going when you're bottom of the league to peg it back. And I think the boys showed that last week.
And you've missed Gowser.
Oh, we've missed him, definitely. He's a captain, he's the leader in the back four. Him and Danny Wilson have got a good partnership. A massive loss to us. Right out the blue as well, Peter. I think that's what it was. It wasn't an injury at training, it wasn't an injury in a game. It just came right out the blue. He's been a massive loss. But let's say, great character for the boys to keep trying to dig out. We've been in most games this season. I think Hibs away and Celtic away, we won at the races. But see every other game, we've been right in there.
Yeah, so St Mirren Hibs, I mentioned David Gray's side pegged back. This is a tough one to call.
St Mirren Hibs? Yeah, I think it is. Brian said, St Mirren are difficult to beat, particularly, in their own ground. The two strikers, I like the two strikers. I like the way St Mirren play. Listen, if they're going to turn you, they'll just turn you. And the two strikers chase everything. They're a real handful. And not only lost causes, but they hold the ball in. They're skillful. The guy scored a cracker last week in the semi-final. So, no, I think it's a really, really tough one to call. Hibs, disappointed the last couple of performances. I've watched most of Hibs games this season. I thought against Rangers they were bereft of any real chances he created, and I think that in terms of Livingston, I thought Livingston deserved at least a point as well for that game. So still sitting third in the league, but I think there's so much more to come for this Hibs team in terms of them creating and scoring goals, and I think this will be a tight game. I'm going to go for a score draw here.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's so much more to come from Hibs. 2-1 St Mirren for me.
I think Hibs are one of the teams that really need to start winning 2 and 3 games. I know they're sitting third top, but people's now looking at the stats. Tam's looking at the stats. What is it in wins in how many games?
I think they've won 3 in 11 games, but they're sitting in third. It shows you how tight the league is.
I know, so they really need a win. I think they might just dig it out 2-1.
Okay.
Hibs.
I think St Mirren at home, I think difficult. The first goal last week against Hearts, Shamal George, free kick in the halfway line. Goalkeeper puts it into your box and they score. I think really, really tough game to call. I think St Mirren might just edge it.
Yeah. Last point before we finish, Brian, which is Livingston. It's no wins in 10. How do you keep, and how does David keep the boys focused not to lose heart when you go on that run and you're searching for the win?
I think, like I spoke about earlier there, we've been in all the games. It's, you can't sugarcoat it and say if this would have happened, if that would have happened. We don't do that. We show them how well we're doing in games and what's costing us games. It's been individual errors a lot of the time. If I go back 2 seasons when we got relegated, it's a completely different feel right now. Then you could sense it a little bit, the disheartened in the camp, and you feel as though you're going to lose. But we don't feel that now. We definitely don't feel that. There's a real togetherness in the squad. There's a freshness in the squad. The boys they're in good form. You don't need to pick them up. That's one thing about this group. You don't need to pick them up because they know they've been so close in so many games.
And just a wee footnote about John McGlynn. Boy, they've surprised everybody. I thought it was going to be Livingston, Dundee and Falkirk. Suddenly, they've got themselves up into that top half.
But they're winning games that they need to win. They've beat Dundee, they've beat Kilmarnock, they've beat Motherwell. They went to Aberdeen and won. Fortunately enough, we beat them. But they're picking up points against teams John would probably have said, right, we need to pick up points in these games. And they've been fantastic at that.
You were their bogey team last season.
Yeah, they didn't beat us last season. They only scored 1 goal, I think, a penalty against us. But that was last season. They're stronger this season, and I believe we're stronger as well.
Yeah, okay. Always great to get your thoughts. Obviously, we're aware that your boss, David, was on